Okay, so I have just unboxed my Sig Banshee. This is exactly how it came. I still the rest is some pieces in the box, so I'm planning on starting this right now. In previous builds, I have done the wing first. However, Sig recommends I start with the fuselage, so that is what I'm gonna do. In my experience, it's been easiest if I start with the motor mounts, then do the doublers. So, even though that is not what is recommended, that's what I'm going to do. My piece of cardboard here. Zap epoxy, have the 15-minute zap epoxy. And this is the part that the doublers came out of, and I have found that it makes a very good, sturdy mixing stick. So, I'm about to get started. I have already test fitted the motor mounts. Make sure they sit flush. I did have to file away some in the back of it to make them fit correctly, but it seems to be fitting well now. So, these things sometimes are a real pain to get glue out of. However, I would definitely recommend these over any kind that you're going to buy at a home improvement store. They tend to be a lot stronger, and the plane tends to be more resilient. I've never had any bad experience with this epoxy. However, I used to use this stuff that I bought at the home improvement store, and I never really had that good of an experience with it. It always peeled off after it got fuel on it, so this is an extra couple bucks, but it's gonna double. It lasts twice as long, easily. I've never had anything peel off that I glued with this. I assure you there is some epoxy in here. I don't know why it's not coming out. Oh, there it is. I tried to mix out the same amount of epoxy and the same amount of resin and hardener, but sometimes it don't work out that way. As long as I'm pretty close, it's good. But I do try to get it as exact as possible. I've got to make sure I mix this real well. And you don't want to use a mixing stick that's too thick. You're going to end up losing a lot of epoxy off that. And you're also going to want to make sure you have your C-clamps handy by this point. Definitely want to make sure I get plenty of epoxy in here. Last thing I need is to be flying this plane and have the motor fly off. I've seen it happen. It's not fun. Okay, I think I've got plenty of epoxy in there. So I'm going to take this motor mount. They tend to be a tad different in size, so I suggest you fit it with the same one that you're going to be epoxying in there. I would highly recommend that. Try and get this flush. Then get your C-clamp. Oh, phone's ringing. Get your C-clamp, which you got some glue on it and it got stuck shut. And you're gonna wanna make sure that you C-clamp the motor mount in. Make sure it gets nice and tight. Again, it does push into the balsa wood a little bit. Sometimes I use a bit of a spacer, or at the end I will be able to fill that in with some Hobbyco light filler, if need be. And now I'm going to repeat the process with the other side. Again, making sure to get plenty of epoxy onto the surface of it. One thing I've always liked about the City Banshee is its motor mounts extend very far back, which means you don't need to get quite as much epoxy. However, I still do because I have seen engines fly off and I don't want it to happen again. So I'm just going to try to get plenty of epoxy into the opening where the motor mount's going to fill. I think I mentioned this previously, but I would also suggest put a piece of wax paper under it because you don't want to ruin the material that you're working on, and you also don't want to end up with a plane glued to a bench. Had it happen to myself before. Learn from mistakes. Now, once again, I want to put my motor mount in here. And in case you were wondering, I'm well aware that SIG does not recommend doing it this way. I just find it easier because in previous experiences, I have done the doublers first, and sometimes you get a little bit of epoxy on where the motor mount's going to go, and it just is a whole nother issue trying to get it out. I did that with my Brodak Magician a while back. And I ended up spending like 3 hours trying to get it off without damaging the wood too bad. Because didn't want to sand off any plywood. Then you want to make sure it's pushed back. Same with the first one that you did. So that's in nice and tight. So now what I want to do is take this off the first piece of wax paper and put it down on an additional piece of wax paper. I will use that piece of wax paper again, just not right now. Gotten a bit more than I thought it'd be. So you just want to make sure this is sitting flush. Then take your original piece of wax paper, the part that does not have wax on it. That's very important. Put that down on top of it. No, the part that does have wax, that does not have epoxy. I'm gonna get a couple of 2x4s. And put them down here to make sure that the motor mounts sit flush. Once again, I would not recommend using a clamp this, because the pressure does not spread evenly, what you do most certainly want it to do. With the 2x4s, it's not going to damage the plane, and it will keep things nice and flat. It's not going to dent into the balsa wood, because it's spread evenly throughout the whole fuselage. I just tend to put more weight towards the part that I'm going to be wanting flush. So I'm making fairly good progress, and I will come back down here in maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, and put on the doublers. So I'll make another video then. Thanks for watching.